Welcome everybody to our webinar tonight entitled Football Career Counseling, where we will be having a live Q&A session to answer your questions. Thank you for being here tonight. Let's begin with the session, and the first thing I'll do is I'll introduce myself. My name is Diego Valdes. I am the Director General at the Sports Business Institute Barcelona. And what we do is we specialize in providing training for those that want to start, advance their career in the business side of the football industry. We've been working for over 7.5 years now from Barcelona, developing programs for professionals that are either looking to start a career or that are already in the football industry and want to further develop. So that's our focus, and that's been our expertise. What I'd like to do now is, this is going to be a very engaging session, and you're going to see that we're going to turn it over to you guys, and we're going to turn it over to your specific questions, which is the objective, to provide value to you on a Friday night, connecting here and dedicating time. So we're going to make it all about you and creating value so that you come out with some key takeaways, insight as to how you can get ahead with your career within the football industry. But before we get started, we always like to know where the participants are coming in from, where they're connecting from. So there's a chat box, and if you want to type in where you're connecting from in the chat box, that'll be great, because then we'll know who's connecting from where, and we'll have an idea as to the demographics of this webinar. I see some names that I already recognize of people that are either doing some of our courses or will do some of our courses. And of course, there's other people that are new to the SBI global community. So, you know, this will serve also as a sound check and making sure that the sound is coming through okay. So let me just go through. Kenny, nice to see you. Kenny's joined us from China. We have Bo from the Netherlands. Hey, Bo, great to see you again. Bo did a course with us not long ago on digital marketing and social media. Athrava from India. Hello, Athrava. Welcome. Julian from Sofia. Hey, Julian, looking forward to working with you over the next couple months for the course. I know you've just joined us for the football marketing and management course, so great to have you along. Rabia, hello, Rabia from Pakistan. Hey, Rabia, I know our team was engaging with you from on Instagram, if that's correct. So nice to see you, Rabia. We have Mathieu Thibault. Hey, Mathieu. Yes, nice to see you as well, Mathieu from Sao Paulo. French national, but connecting from Brazil, and Mathieu is also forming part of one of our courses. Abdul Samad Yusuf from Nigeria. Okay, excellent. A recent master's graduate of sports management. Excellent. Nice to have you here, Yusuf. Badar from Saudi Arabia. Hey, Badar, good to see you. Badar and I were in some conversations in LinkedIn, and yes, from our recent trip to Saudi Arabia. Ziyad from the USA. Hey, Ziyad. And Suharto from Leicester. Nice to see you, Suharto. Okay, good. I think I've gotten everybody. Just want to make sure I'm not missing anybody on the chat. So it looks like everybody's sound is coming through okay. So that's great. Let me just go over now what the webinar structure is going to be. We're going to be running this for approximately an hour or so. Maybe we'll go a little bit over, but about an hour. And the idea is to cover this. So I'm going to very quickly go through 3 keys that we've seen from our experiences that are very useful to get ahead in the football industry. So you may want to grab pen and paper, because we're going to be talking about 3 keys that are important to think about, to reflect as to where you're at, where you want to go, and how you can fill those gaps. Well, there's 3 keys that you should think about if you want to work in the football industry that you should be looking to develop. So we're going to cover those. Then, as you may know, we're running a football marketing and management course, which is a short 2-month program that starts next week. What we're going to do is we're going to introduce that course to you, just so you know a little bit more about what we do and what our programs entail. And then after that, we're going to turn it over for the Q&A session. And the Q&A is going to be live, interactive. And what I mean by that is, right now you can't unmute your microphones, but what I'll be asking you is, if you have a specific question, to type it in the chat box, or to just type, hey, I have a question, in the chat box. And then what I'll do is I'll unmute you, and we're actually going to have a live interaction and you can ask your questions, and you can say, well, listen, I'm thinking about this as a career option. What do you think? And that's what I'm here for, to provide my advice based on the experience of the people that we've trained, the success patterns we've identified in the past number of years that we've been working in this industry. So that's the way that we're going to focus the webinar structure today. If you want to engage with us on social media, particularly on Twitter, Ayman from the SBI team is live tweeting this web conference. So stay tuned. If you go to our Twitter handle, which is SBI_Barcelona, that's Ayman tweeting, live tweeting. So, be sure to engage with him as well. And let's get started. So what are those three keys? What are those three keys to get ahead in the football industry? Well, you may be at a different stage right now in your career. Some of you may be just starting out and are looking to get your foot in the door and want to know how to get ahead. So if that's the case, this webinar will provide value to you. On the other hand, you may already be in football and you may want to further develop in the football industry. You may have already some experience. I know there's a couple of people that come from the coaching side but are considering the business side. So there's some profiles like that have experience in football but want to further develop. So if that's your situation, this webinar will also add value. And then if you're coming from another corporate sector, maybe you have experience in other sectors, or you've just recently finished a master's, as you were saying, some of you. Well, this webinar can also provide value because the three keys that I'm going to mention now, no matter what stage you're at in your career, those are important points to consider. Okay, so let's run through them. And like I said, if you want to grab pen and paper, make sure that you write a few notes, because I think it'll be valuable if you take a few pointers. So what's the first thing you need if you want to work in the football industry? Well, we always say that it's very important to have industry-specific knowledge. Now, what do we mean by industry-specific knowledge? Well, here we're talking about having a deep understanding as to how the business of football works. Now, why is this important? Because if you don't have this deep, in-depth knowledge and you want to further develop or you want to break into the industry, you're going to be in a more vulnerable position against those that do have that knowledge and experience. But the knowledge specifically is important to consider here. So this is important because you may have an understanding, a general understanding of how football works, and you may be, a football fan, or you may be following football, or you may be even working in football, but not necessarily know about the specifics. So it is very important that if you do want to get ahead, you understand how are contracts signed. What are the clauses included? How does an agent sign a deal with a player? How does an agent negotiate with a club? How do you organize a major events? How do you activate a partnership, especially nowadays in the digital era? So all those things you really need to understand very deeply, because if you don't, like I said, you're going to be applying for positions, but you don't necessarily know, an in-depth knowledge about the sector. So that's something to really think about. So reflect upon right now, take a couple of seconds and say, how much knowledge do I have about the industry? How much knowledge do I know about in-depth if I had to work at a club or at a federation or with a brand that sponsors a football club or a tournament? How much would I really know? And if the answer is, yeah, somewhat but not a lot, then you really have to start thinking about how to fill that gap, okay? Because that's the first thing that you're going to need. And this is for any sector if you think about it. No matter what sector you think about, it's important to understand how it works from the inside. So some of you may be coming, I don't know, from the banking or the IT sector or, from other areas in business. And you'll know that if you don't have the deep understanding, you can't perform and you can't have the same type of opportunities as those that do. So that's the first thing that I would invite you to reflect upon tonight. How much industry-specific knowledge do you have? And based on that, try and understand as to how you can get to gaining that knowledge if you lack it. Okay, so that's the first point that I would encourage you to reflect upon. Okay. Secondly, networking and network. Okay, this is for any sector and any business area, and more specifically in football. because football is a sector that is very closed in many cases, and especially in some countries, it's very difficult to break in because there's a lot of barriers. So networking is fundamental, and I'll give you a couple of examples. It is estimated, of course, these reports you got to take with a grain of salt, but it is estimated that about 60 to 75% of the job opportunities in football are not publicly advertised. So that means that there's 60 to 75% of the jobs that if you're not networking, building relationships, knowing people in the industry, you're not going to be able to be aware of. So that's something where building those relationships comes in of utmost importance. So again, reflect upon right now and think, well, how many people do I know in the industry? How is my network? Am I building it? Am I developing it? Am I nurturing relationships? And if the answer is no, then you really should start thinking about how to optimize this area, because like I said, a lot of the times the job opportunities are not about applying for jobs. It's about knowing the people in the industry and building relationships, building trust, okay? So networking is very, very important to keep in mind. Why is this also important? Because it's about adding value, okay? A lot of times people make the mistake, especially early on, they make the mistake that they want to focus too much on their own objectives. And they say, well, I want to work in football. This is my objective. This is where I want to go. But sometimes they forget about the other side, which is the employer, be it the club or a federation or a sponsoring brand or a sport marketing agency, etc. And you really have to put yourself in their position and see, what do they want? And when you're approaching these organizations, it's important to understand what are their realities, what are their challenges. And the more you can put yourself in their position, the better you will be positioned to provide value. So that's something else to think about. Don't just focus on your own journey and your objective. Think about where you want to apply and where you're looking to go in the football industry. And those are organizations that you target. Think about what they want, and that'll give you an idea as to how you can position yourself and start building those relationships to increase your network, which of course is very important. The other thing that I would mention and that I would stress here is that networking is about building trust, right? You see this picture here, the handshake. Why is it important to build trust? Again, because football is a very closed sector. So it's not always easy to enter if you're not part of the industry already. And it takes time to position yourself and to be able to establish yourself as someone who can be regarded as someone that is of value to the industry. So it is important to start building that trust. I always say this, think about, when you're on the highway, right? Think about if you're driving down the highway and you see someone that is hitchhiking. Would you pick them up and take them to your destination? Most of us probably wouldn't, right? And the reason we wouldn't is because we don't know the person. It may be the most genuinely nice, good-hearted person out on the road, but we normally wouldn't stop because we don't trust them and we don't know. Well, the same thing is in football. You may have the best disposition, the most passion than anybody else, but people don't know who you are. And if they don't know who you are, they don't trust you, and they don't trust in you delivering value and you doing good work for them. So it is very important to build that trust. And with that same analogy, if someone was out on the street hitchhiking and you were passing by, and then you got a call from one of your friends, and your friend said, hey, my friend is out on the highway, would you mind picking him up and driving him into town? Most likely you would, right? Because he's coming referred from somebody that you trust. So this goes for any sector, but particularly for football, which I mentioned before, and sports in general, trust is of utmost importance. So think about how you are building relationships, how you're networking, how you're developing those connections, because at the end of the day, this is going to be proving to be very, very useful later down the road. And when I say useful, I mean about adding value and building trust and building relationships, right? So again, think about this right now and ask yourselves, how wide is my network? Am I working to develop those relationships? And if the answer is no, then you really should consider how you can fill this gap. Because again, like before, if you don't have the in-depth knowledge of the industry, likewise, if you don't have the network, you're going to be in a more disadvantageous position, and it's going to take a long time to start building it. So, the sooner you start thinking about how to add value to the market, how to build relationships, the better position you're going to be later down the road to establish those connections, that trust that will enable you to, to get ahead in the industry. So those are the two first points that I wanted to stress tonight, because like I said, we've worked with a lot of people, we've identified the success patterns, and we've seen time and time again what are the elements that take those that really go to the next level and optimize their opportunities. So that's the first couple points. Just to recap, industry-specific knowledge and the networking. And then we're going on to the third point, which is having some type of mentor, guidance, as we're doing here, counseling, because there's going to come a point where you may have the knowledge, you may have started to build a network, but you're going to come to crossroads and you're going to have decisions to make. And those decisions may impact the rest of your lives, or at least the next few years or months of your professional career. And sometimes it's important to be able to bounce off ideas, to be able to rely upon people who have seen how the industry works, have the experience, that can provide you guidance and that can provide you assistance and mentorship. So that's something else that I would encourage you to think about. If you have anybody that is already working in the industry, or you have people that maybe family members that come from the football industry, that's something to really value, because if you have someone of trust that can give you an honest opinion as to where you can take your career and what are your strengths and how you can nurture those strengths and how you can fill the gaps that perhaps you need to develop further, that figure of a mentor or of a counselor or someone who provides guidance in your career is going to prove to be very important. And again, we've seen this time and time again. People that have that support are able to then make better informed decisions and optimize their opportunities. Now, this is not to say that if you don't have any of these three elements optimized, that you won't get to where you want to go. There's very passionate and driven people, but it just takes longer. It takes very much longer, and in many cases, it's harder. And you know what happens when things get hard? Many people, quit. So in order not to quit, the best thing to do is optimize your path. And to optimize your path, these are three key elements that I would say very important to keep in mind. There's another element that is experience, which we can talk a little bit further in the Q&A section. Experience is fundamental too, but if you don't have the first three, so if you don't have the in-depth knowledge, if you don't have a network, and if you don't have someone who's able to guide you, it's probably unlikely that you're going to gain an opportunity to get experience anyway, right? So experience will come when you start building these first three elements, and then opportunities are going to come, and that's where you're going to be able to build your experience. So obviously it is very important to get some type of experience, and sometimes it can be in the form of internships or volunteer work, etc., at least at the beginning, because that experience can be very valuable to demonstrate later on down the road. Okay, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's fundamental, because we've seen many people that come from other sectors as well that don't have experience in football, but that have experience in other business areas that are very valuable to the business side of football. Because let's not forget, football or sports is an industry like any other, and it's run like a business. Obviously, what happens on the pitch, it's different. And those that I know, like Kenny, for example, who's joining us on the call, who's a football coach. Well, there's elements there about performance and tactics and nutrition and all sorts of other things that the business side doesn't necessarily focus on too much. So if you want to work in the business side of football, you can also rely upon strengths or experience from other sectors, in business or marketing or media or events, etc. Okay, so those are the three key elements that I wanted to talk about today. Right now, I don't want to talk for the entire session tonight. So what I'll do is I'll ask you to start thinking about questions that you want to ask. Take this opportunity, and there's no question that is a question that is not valid. If it's something that you're thinking about or that you have a doubt, put it in the chat box, and we're going to deal with it, and we're going to provide you as best as we can some advice as to how to head ahead. Okay. So for those that want to ask a question, start putting it in the chat. And in the meantime, while those questions start coming in, I'll give you a few minutes to think about ideas that you want to discuss tonight. And then what I'll do is I'll briefly talk about our football marketing and management online course, okay, that starts next week. Because I want to give you an idea as to how we operate at SBI. So now that you're here, you get to know us a little bit better. Like I said, I know there's people that have already done our courses, and then there's others that are starting with this particular program, in fact, next week. So some of you may already be part of the SBI alumni family or community, and others may be just joining us for the first time. So just wanted to highlight some of the key elements of our courses, and particularly this course starting next week. So we were talking before about the knowledge and how important it is to understand how the industry works from the inside, right? Well, these are the elements or the areas that we cover in this particular course, or at least some of them. So we look at marketing and sponsorship. And like I was saying, we don't talk about textbook theory in the course. We actually look at real life cases and we say, okay, this is a sponsorship proposal that is between a real club and a real brand. How did they sign that agreement? What was included in the clauses? What were the objectives? How was it measured? So all these types of things are important to know. Like I said, if you want to know how the industry works at a very in-depth knowledge, right? And likewise for the other areas. So event management, how do you organize and manage an event, be it a small grassroots tournament or a major tournament like the FIFA World Cup? At the end of the day, there's certain areas that are important to consider. So we break it down, we unpack it, so you really understand if event management is an area that you want to move into. You know, there's a module that covers that. Likewise, we have a module on player representation and athlete branding. So how to sign contracts if you want to be an agent, how to maximize the brand of an athlete when it comes to endorsement deals and social media. Likewise, digital media and marketing. Nowadays, as you know, football is changing in sports. The consumption of sport is changing. Now there's OTT, live streaming, there's esports, there's artificial intelligence. There's all sorts of new technology that is disrupting the industry. So it's important to know how all that is affecting the business of football. And we talk about that. Evidently, the economic side of things and finance, we understand looking at providing you the tools so you understand how to read the financial figures within football. So from a financial standpoint, it's also important to know what is important in football. And likewise, how to develop business. So how to grow the brand, say, of a football club internationally, how to grow the audience both at a domestic and international level. And there's other areas that we cover as well, such as ambush marketing. We look at real life cases. We look at how to brand a football club. So there's many cases and examples that we look at in this particular course. Excuse me. Some of the clubs and organizations that have collaborated with us or have sent us executives to do programs. Now, why do I say this, or why do we put all these logos? It's not to blow our own horn and say, oh, look at us at SBI, who we've worked with. Obviously, we're very proud to have that and have those organizations and trust us. But more importantly, when it comes to you guys that do this course, this is to show you that there is a wide community of SBI students and alumni all over the world that are already working in football. So in many cases, we are able to make introductions. We're able to put you in touch with people. So the more we know about your objectives, the better position we're in to provide you that support, guidance, and counseling. And we'll talk about that today in the Q&A. The alumni community, as you can see on the map here, very wide. Last time, I think it was over 80 countries. I think now we're at around 85. We had someone from Mauritius a couple of days ago that signed up to one of our programs, and that's a country that we have not added to the map. So there's about 80 or 85 countries that we have a network of alumni in these 7.5 years that we've been in operations. We've built partnerships with clubs, with universities. Just to give you a few examples, we've worked with FC Barcelona. We've worked with clubs in La Liga. We've worked with the PFA, clubs in England. internationally as well in Latin America, Mexico, Brazil, Argentina, Africa, Australia. So the list goes on. So that means that when you take part in one of our programs, you not only form part of the cohort that you join, you also form part of a wider family. And I always point to several examples of students that study online and that build relationships with us, and then we're able to then put them in touch or connect them with people from the industry. So again, this goes back to understanding where you're at today, where you want to go, what's your objective, and the more we can help you, that's what we're here for. That's what we really are passionate about. And sometimes people say that I speak too fast and I get very passionate when I speak, but it's true. It oozes out of me because this is something that I really enjoy doing. I really enjoy providing this advice based on the experience that we've had in these 7.5 years, delivering value to a lot of these organizations. And likewise, from my personal standpoint, I've been a media member for numerous FIFA, UEFA events. I've worked as a journalist, an accredited journalist in European championships, Champions League finals. I've engaged with executives from confederations. Many guest speakers from our programs, from our master program, come from top organizations. So that also has allowed us to build relationships and to continue being very real life and practical and have the finger on the pulse on what's happening in the industry. Because we've always believed that we didn't want to be an institute that was very academic in the sense that it was true textbook theory. Rather than focusing on theory, we've always focused on real life cases that provide value to you and to the industry. So anyway, I don't want to go on too much on this because you guys, we really want to get to your questions. But if you think that you want to further develop your knowledge, if you want to grow your network, if you want to have a team of mentors that will guide you along the way, this course can optimize that for you. As I was saying before, it's something that you can do on your own, something that you can do if you want to build relationships on your own, if you want to start, there's information out there, as you know, on the World Wide Web. You can access a lot of information, but it's about optimizing that road. It's about, making it quicker and easier for you, and with the seal of approval or the validation of our students that have seen the success and that have seen the patterns of how they've optimized their career path. So if you're interested, the course starts next week. Next week is a self-study week, so we're still accepting enrollments. You can go to sbibarcelona.com, read about the program, download the prospectus, which you can do so directly from the web. There's a couple of videos there as well that you can check out. And if you have any questions, now we'll be in touch through this webinar. Get in touch with myself, someone from our team. We'll be happy to understand and know if this is the course that may be the right fit for you. For some others, this may not be the right course. I've talked to some other people that have said, well, I really want to do something more on the coaching side, even though I want to touch upon the business side. So I've told them, well, this is not the course. This course, if you want to get into the coaching, the performance side, we touch upon it very briefly, but this is the business side. So, we'll be, having conversations with those that want to know more, and we'll be very honest, and we'll be telling you what you can expect and what you can't expect from this course. And that's what has allowed us to build that trust with those, interested participants, that we really do focus on them rather than trying to make this a course for everybody. Excuse me. So that said, you can go to our web, you can check it out, but let's get to what's really important, and it's about you guys tonight. So hopefully, while I've been talking, there's a few questions that have come up. So I'm gonna, go through the list to see what type of questions are coming in. So I see that Ellie is asked a question. So Ellie, I'm going to see if we can unmute your microphone, and that way we can get you to actually tell us a little bit more about yourself, and we know more about who you are and what you want to do. So I'm going to unmute your microphone, okay? So, Ellie, can you hear us?
Hi.
Hi, Ellie. Welcome to the webinar. So where are you connecting from?
I'm connecting from England.
You're connecting from England. Okay. And you had a question, so maybe you want to ask it so the rest of the participants tonight can hear it, and we can talk a little bit more about it.
Yeah, so I study marketing at University of Football Business in Manchester in England. And I just wanted to know, how do you get ahead of everyone else when you're going for the same job role in the industry?
Yeah, that's a really good question. One of the things that I would say that it's that can give you a competitive advantage is to really work on how you can deliver value to those roles that you're applying for. So, for example, I guess you're talking about opportunities that come up, say, at a football club or at a league or something like that, right? And there's a lot of students that apply for the same position.
Yeah.
Okay. So one of the things that you can do, and this is a really good tip, in fact, a lot of people, what they do is they just send their CV. And some people will have more experience, less experience, depending on, where they were at before they started the program. But what you can do to get ahead, to optimize that opportunity, is to do research on that organization. So let's say it's a football club. What you can do is you can go on their social media. You can go on their website, find out who are their sponsors, how are they using social media, what markets are they in. So do a list of all these things, and then prepare a report. So not just send them your CV, but prepare a report that can be, I don't know, anywhere from 2, 5, 10, 20 pages, however long you want to make it, depending on what you're researching. And then when you submit your application, you're submitting, of course, your CV so they know who you are, but you're also submitting something that the rest of the candidates probably are not taking the time to do. And then you'll be demonstrating two things. Number one, proactiveness, because you're going to be, showing them that you're putting in work already before they even know who you are. You're already delivering value from day one. And not only that, that shows a certain drive, a certain commitment, discipline that others may not be willing to put in the time and effort to do. So that's something that I would say would definitely put you ahead. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, answer my question.
So what type of roles, Ellie, are you looking to apply for, or what would be your dream job to work in football?
Well, I'm currently studying business and marketing at university. I'm only in my first year, but okay. I'd love to do something within marketing, events at a club.
Okay, so something related in marketing. Well, that's definitely something that I would strongly recommend, because a lot of times people, what they do is they wait until the degree is done or the first year is done. And if you start thinking about that now, and even what you can also do is you don't necessarily have to wait for an opportunity to be posted at your university for you to apply. You can do self-candidatures, which is you can start doing this type of research and this type of reports to the other organizations, and you can start submitting it on your own. And who knows, maybe some of them will call you and say, hey, Ellie, we really like what you sent us, and we think that what you've provided for us can caught our eye. Let's have a conversation, and you can start opening the door on your own without necessarily relying just on the opportunities that come through your university. So that's something else to think about.
Yeah, brilliant.
Okay. All right, Ellie. Well, have a great evening. I hope you enjoy the rest of this webinar, and good luck with your studies.
Thank you very much.
Keep in touch with us, Ellie. All the best.
Okay.
All right, so that's great. So that's a really good question that Ellie asked, and that's something that comes up very often. How do you differentiate yourself? So I'm glad that Ellie asked that question, because that's something that a lot of the times comes up in these types of webinars. Right, then we have Santiago Cortez. I see he's got a question as well. So let me go to Santiago and see if we can get your microphone. So Santiago, let's see if your microphone works. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hey, Santiago. So,
hey, how are you?
Tell us about what your question is tonight. Well, first of all, where are you connecting from?
Mexico.
Mexico. Okay, I'm also from Mexico.
Oh, perfect.
So nice to have you connecting from where? Ciudad de Mexico, Guadalajara, Monterrey?
Yeah, Ciudad de Mexico.
Ciudad de Mexico. Okay, very good. Right. Well, we could obviously have this conversation in Spanish, but we're going to keep it in English because we both know about the international audience tonight. So Santiago, tell us about what was your specific question?
Well, as you may know, here in Mexico, the football industry is quite close. So, I mean, I'm a student. I'm in my last year of business career. So, what do you recommend to start with? I mean, maybe an internship. I don't know. For us, the students, is quite difficult. It's more difficult to start a career in the football industry here in Mexico, I think. So my question is basically that: how do you recommend me to start a career? I mean,
Right.
I understand that the networking is uh, very important. It's fundamental in this aspect, but
Yeah.
it's that.
Just a quick question, Santiago. The degree that you're doing, is it specific to sports management, or it's a business degree?
No, it's a business degree. It's not a specifics.
Okay. Okay. Well, the first thing that I would say is going back to the first point that we talked about,
Mm-hmm.
which is having a deep understanding of the industry and how it works, and particularly in different markets such as the Mexican market. That's
Mm-hmm.
something that I would say right now is a knowledge gap that you have, because you have a very strong business background, having your business degree,
Mm-hmm.
but perhaps you don't necessarily have the inside knowledge as to how the contracts are signed, how the sponsorships are negotiated, this type of thing. Maybe you have a general idea, but that would be an area that I would definitely recommend that you start, um, acquiring more knowledge on, and beefing up on it, because if you go and we all know, especially countries like Mexico, as you said, it's a very closed sector. It's very difficult to get in. It's usually built on relationships. But this is not to say that it's impossible to penetrate the sector if you
Mm-hmm.
deliver value in the industry. So in order to deliver value, you first need to understand how that works and how you can do that. So that would be my first recommendation, to think about how you can fill that gap, evidently from
Okay.
a networking standpoint too. And this is something that you can also go back to Ellie's question from before,
Yeah,
that
sure.
you can start contacting clubs, and what would be your ideal job? I mean, if you wanted to work in football in Mexico, where would you see yourself?
Well, for starters, I think that nowadays my ideal job will be like in a club,
Okay.
in the logistics sector.
Okay. Okay. Excellent. Yeah. No, that's good. It's good to have also focus and clarity. So the more you know where the areas that you're strong in and that you want to work in, the more you can start gearing and focusing in that direction, right? Just comes to mind. We run several programs at SBI. So this short course that I mentioned before is just one of them, but we have other programs that we run. And last year, one of our students was the marketing manager of the Federación Mexicana de Fútbol.
Okay.
So this is where the network also comes into hand, because it's not always easy. If you send a message to someone at a club, at a federation, at a league, and they don't know who you are, it's very difficult that you get a response. If you go in
Yes.
cold, and I know, because I'm from Mexico, and it's not just Mexico, it's football in general. It's if you go in and they don't know who you are, I always say this as well. If you have a CV that says that you work for UEFA, for Manchester United, and for FIFA, then it's a different story, because obviously your experience speaks for itself. But 99.9% of the people that are applying for jobs don't have that experience. So how do you counter that? Well, you want to build on that experience. You want to start getting that knowledge first. You want to start building that network. And eventually, with patience, opportunities do come. And we've seen people in the Mexican market that, former students of ours, that perhaps started with the objective of working at a club, and then, through their journey, they ended up working at a marketing agency doing sponsorship activations for brands in the Mexican league. So, it's also about starting that journey. But I understand what you mean, that it's not always an easy road. But what I would say this is, try and think about how you can add value to those organizations.
Mm-hmm.
from an outside perspective, and then reflecting on the inside, do an analysis, say where am I at? What are the knowledge gaps that I have? What are the gaps that I need to fill? And start thinking about how you can fill them.
Okay.
That would be what I would suggest. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. I'll leave my details at the end, and you guys will have my email. You guys will have my LinkedIn. So feel free to connect. I know that tonight we're just asking one question here and there, but if you want to have a more in-depth conversation, get in touch with me, and I'll be happy to jump on a call with any of you guys that are on the webinar tonight. Okay? So, Santiago, all the best.
Thank you very much.
Tu Ciudad de
Thank
México.
you.
Un abrazo hasta el DF.
Igual, muchas gracias. Nos escribimos.
Sounds good. Okay, so let's tackle another question. Santiago's question was very good because there's many markets in football that are very closed, that are very difficult to enter. I always like to also acknowledge people in the UK as being lucky to some extent because clubs in the leagues in England tend to make offers, job offers, public, and you can go to the websites. And this is not very common in many other markets within football. It usually is, like I was saying, 65, 75% of the time, it's not even advertised publicly. So it's about, building those relationships and knowing people in the industry. So it's a really good question by Santiago. So thank you, Santiago, for the question. Right. So let's go to some other questions here and see what we can have. So Richard Kerr-Bell. Hey, Richard. Richard has been engaging with us for a long time from, if I'm not mistaken, from Dunedin in New Zealand. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I'm usually good with names and locations of people that have engaged with us for a number of webinars, but maybe I'm mistaken. So let's go to Richard. Let me try and find him here on the list. There we go, Richard. So Richard, it must be, late for you, but I don't know what time it is in New Zealand. If I'm not mistaken, that's where you're connecting from. So let me try and get you here to unmute your microphone. So Richard, can you hear us?
Good morning. Yes, I can.
Hello, Richard. Is it Dunedin?
It is Dunedin. Yes.
Is it? I knew I had the name. Yeah. Okay. Good.
Almost
So
8 in the morning, so it's a great time.
What time is it?
About 8:45 in the morning, so it's great.
Okay. So the early bird gets the worm, as they say, right?
That's right.
Good stuff. So Richard, tell us about your question.
Sure. I was just wondering, when someone looks on a CV in a sports club, etc., what are they attracted to most in a CV? I know from my own kind of interviewing, etc., that there's normally one thing that jumps out. What obviously it depends on the role, but what area of your CV do you think is most important when it hits the desk?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the CV for sports is an interesting one to discuss because it's a little bit obviously it's the same as in any other sector, but it's also important to see how you can highlight that. I would say that, again, this is what you were saying before. It depends on the role, etc. But I would say that if you focus on the business area of that role and adapt your CV to that, that's where you're going to have the best chance. Now, if you focus on a particular area, some people like to have a summary at the top, which really looks at what are the key, the key areas where you add value to the market or to the organization. So that's a good thing to have as well on the CV, a summary of key achievements and what value you can bring to the organization. So again, I would stress that for any type of role, I definitely recommend that researching the organization and providing something beyond the CV. So even if it's a short recommendation, a short report, that demonstrates a lot of value to those organizations. So that's something that we recommend very often, and it has a lot of impact and success of people that do put it in place. So that would be my answer for that. So what has been your experience? What roles are you applying for?
Right. So in New Zealand, we have one professional club really that plays in the A League, Wellington Phoenix. But I guess I'm interested in the next couple of years in our federation, the CEO of our federation, when that comes up next, which is so running a regional federation.
Right, right. Okay. And do you come from a sports background or from a business background or from what type of experience do you have?
Yeah, kind of management roles and also coaching and playing at a high level. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Right. So you've been a professional athlete before or semi-professional athlete?
Yeah, playing at those levels at our but within the limited space that we have in New Zealand here for football.
Right. Right. Okay. Yeah. So that's definitely an area that you can highlight, of course, and you know that having your experience in the football industry as a player in management. So yeah, that would be what I would say. A good summary of the key areas that you can add value to the organization. If it's a business role, specifically focus on the areas that the role is, requires. And then going back to the question that Ellie made at the beginning, if you can complement that with some type of value, that goes a long way. That goes a long way.
Yeah.
And
sorry, that was quite inspired. Yeah, I got that with Ellie's. Was a great question, adding the report. Also, I think your model you showed of the different areas, your course just sounds like it ticks the important boxes. That's what I'm hearing.
yeah, I mean, what we did when we designed all of our programs is we reversed engineer, because we've been almost operating for almost 8 years now. In the market today, there's a lot of great schools and great programs, both face-to-face and online, that you can find now. But if you think back to 8 years ago, there weren't many football-specific programs, and definitely not many online. So we were kind of one of the first organizations that started doing this. And one of the things that we really wanted to do is we wanted to stay away from the traditional academic approach that most sports management degrees offered. And we said, well, we really want to bring in industry-specific knowledge, because that's what people are demanding in the market, and that's what people want to learn. So the way we did it is we reversed engineered and looked at what does the market need, what are the gaps that the students need to fill, and how can we deliver a program that optimizes their journey. And we're proud to say that our programs are having success, and people are having many opportunities to build relationships, to work in football organizations. And it's because in many ways the program has been built around the industry and not the other way around. So that's something that I can say that we definitely have had very positive feedback and strong validation from our students.
Yeah, no, it sounds great. Thank you very much.
Okay, Richard. Well, have a great morning, and it's great to have you engaged in the webinars as usual. So all the best. Over to Dunedin.
Thank you very much.
Great question. That's a really good question, and CVs comes up very often because, let's face it, and especially for those, this is something that comes up also very often. People that are working in other sectors that want to transition to football, and then they say, well, I don't know how to adapt my CV or my LinkedIn because I want to work for football roles, but if I go and put, all my profile around sporting jobs, then how is that going to look in my current employer if you don't want them to see that? How am I going to be able to adapt if another opportunity comes along? So it's important to really think about a strategy that is right for each individual, and especially for those transitioning. I know that sometimes comes up. So that's a really good question by Richard. Just got a note here from Emma from our team that's saying that we recently published an infographic on CV tips. So if you go to our Twitter, SBI_Barcelona, there is an infographic from a few days ago that has 7 keys to optimize your CV that was prepared by our teammate Xavi. So you'll see that on social media. But that's a really good question, Richard. So thank you for coming on and asking your specific question. Praylin, I see Praylin has a question. So we're going to try and deal as many questions as we can tonight. So Praylin, let me unmute your microphone and hopefully we can get you to come and speak. So where are we now here? Let me find you. Pralin. Okay, there's 1 second because there's a few names here and I'm trying to find you, Pralin. There we go, Pralin. I'm going to unmute your microphone, so hopefully you can hear us.
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
Hi, Pralin. Yes.
Thanks for having us and thanks for hosting this session. My question is around, well, there's 2 questions I've got. First one is around the digital element of, I guess, the world we're living in now. As you touched upon before, that there's nowadays different ways of viewing sports, not least football, so OTT, streaming, that kind of stuff. As a result, are you seeing more and more different kinds of roles come up in the industry to do with digital? If so, what are these kinds of roles and what do they entail? And I ask this question because I currently am an IT consultant in London. I work in the digital team for a telecommunications company, and I find the kind of the area really interesting, but I'm not really fascinated about broadband. I'm much more interested in football. So yeah, just a bit more information on that would be really useful.
No, that's a really good point. I mean, I'm sure you've heard the term digital transformation, right? And this is something in all sectors that essentially what's happening is that industries are being disrupted by technological advances, and
correct.
You know, and many times it's been described as though someone was describing it as though you're changing the tire while the car is still running, and in many ways this is the sector, right? That the business models that have been in place for a number of years are beginning to get disrupted, and football clubs, football organizations need to quickly adapt. And how are they doing so? Well, relying upon professionals that have that expertise. So in fact, you're in an ideal position in the sense that you come from a digital IT background, because this is an area that a lot of sports organizations are looking to bring in professionals. So these types of roles, I mean, you've obviously heard, I'm sure, about DAZN, the company that OTT platform for sports. If you go to their website, there's so many jobs available and opportunities for people that have that background in digital. So to your question specifically, you are in a privileged position in the sense that this is a sector of the industry that is growing, and that clubs are looking for professionals that are coming from other sectors as well, right? Because traditionally in football, those profiles didn't exist. So they're looking to bring on those experts that can deliver that value, but adapt it obviously to the sports sector. So I would definitely say that that's an advantage in your current situation.
Thank you.
Perfect. And Pralin, you're part of the program. Am I not mistaken? You're already on the course?
Yeah, I'm going to start the course next week.
You're going to start the course next week. Yeah, perfect. I thought we had engaged already. So perfect. Well, that means we're going to have plenty more opportunities to converse and to bounce off ideas particular to your own journey, right? So how long have you been working in the IT or the digital space?
3 years.
3 years. Okay. Excellent. Excellent. No, perfect. Well, I think the course will deliver a lot of value to you, because it'll open ideas for you as to the business models of football and sport, but also adapt it to the current landscape. So, no, really good question.
Brilliant. Thank you. And I guess if I can just ask the second question.
Yeah.
The course and I suppose the network that SBI has, is it just for the rights holders, such as the football clubs and organizations and institutions, or do you also have a network with agencies? And also, do you have a network with any recruiters, particularly in the UK?
Yeah, we have relationships with quite a number of organizations, not just clubs and right holders. And a lot of the times our network has been built by the students that have done our program. So we've had people from media companies, from sports marketing agencies, and those are the relationships that we have the strongest link, obviously, because there are our former students and now they're having success in the industry. So there's people that come from sports marketing agencies, that come from broadcasting companies. So we've had quite a number of individuals from from different parts of the industry. So once we have more information or know more about, once we start doing the course and having more opportunities to chat, what we can do is, see potentially if there's opportunities for us to introduce you to, some of the people that we know in areas that may be of interest to you.
Okay, amazing. Thank you.
Perfect, Braylon. Well, looking forward to working with you next couple months. So all the best, and thanks for your question. Talk to you very soon.
Likewise. Thank you very much.
All right, perfect. Good. Some really good questions, and very varied and very useful. And this is something that we like to do as well, because someone asks a question, but it adds value to the group, because a lot of the times people have the same ideas or the same concepts that they want to ask. So really good that we're tackling quite a number of these tonight. Okay, so let me go through the list here and see what else comes up. We have Badar. Okay, Badar, yes, from Saudi Arabia. So Badar, let's have a look and see if we can get your microphone unmuted. So there we go. Badar, can you hear us?
Hello, do you hear me?
Yes, welcome. How are you?
I'm good, I'm fine, thank you.
Are you in Riyadh?
Yeah, no, I'm in Riyadh now.
Yeah. Okay, excellent, excellent. So
I'm so glad first that I'm attending this webinar. It's a pleasure to me that I hear from you and get that knowledge and experience from you, Diego.
It's great to have you on here, Badar, and especially someone from Saudi Arabia, where football is just growing at a massive pace. And we've seen the international tournaments, the international sporting events, entertainment that is being taken to Saudi Arabia and how it's opening up, and with Vision 2030 and the privatization of the football clubs in Saudi. So really an interesting moment to be in Saudi football.
Yeah, right. And that's something that we should be proud of, actually.
Yes. So did you have a specific question tonight that you wanted to to address?
Yeah, actually, I have. I want to take this chance to. I don't know if I can ask you some 2 or 3 questions, but 2 will be good, because I want to get the others the chance to ask you. But my most important question, and what's important for me actually in my beginning of my sports career, that's I want to ask you what's some rare or qualitative skills that you advise any marketing department workers that differentiate himself or give him like the ahead of other competitors or something,
Well, I think there's areas that you can focus on when it comes to marketing, and we were talking before now. Of course, digital is very important, and Pralin was talking about that. So the way, for example, sponsorships are activated now is very different than the way they were activated before. Before, it was companies would invest a certain amount of money to have assets such as the shirt or the backdrops or the pitch side boarding, etc.
Yeah.
And nowadays this is much more than that, right? It's about how you can maximize those digital channels, how you can activate across different markets. So I would say that digital is very, very important in this day and age from a marketing standpoint. It's an area that the more you know about how the industry is transforming itself, the better position you're going to be in. And then in general, this would be the same as I would say before, and we talked about, just have a very good understanding of the sector of the market that you're in, because the more you know about the market, the better position you're in to understand and how to add value in it.
All right, that's good. That's some valuable information and answer. Thank you, Diego. My second question is, if you can tell us about your beginning in your career, and what's the important lessons that you have learned throughout your career that may, of course, that will help us to after we or in our careers.
No, that's a really good question. I'd be happy to share my journey. I don't come from a football background, such as, you know, some of the people that were on the webinar before, like Richard or others that come from a playing career or come from a experience at, you know, in football. I didn't come from football. My journey was I studied international relations in university, and then I started working. Well, then I did an MBA and started working for a consulting firm in Barcelona, not related to sports, but related to training. So business skills training for different corporates and companies. So that's where I have this passion for training and for delivering, you know, programs that add value. But I always had this passion for sport, and particularly football. So I decided to do a master's degree here in Barcelona. And it was a very good program. I got to, you know, network, meet a lot of people. But I found that that program, the one I did at least, was very broad because it was sports management. So it focused on a lot of areas of sport. And I really was just passionate about football. And at that time, there was no football specific or very few football specific programs. So I thought, well, how can I turn my passion, which is training, which is dealing with people, which is, you know, providing value, and also be involved in sports? So I started finding ways where I could start getting my foot in the door. And having a background in international relations and, you know, coming from an area where it's also, I had done a year of journalism, I thought that's an avenue that I want to start pursuing while I still am in my full-time job. So what I started doing is I started a blog. I started a small blog and started writing some articles about football. Eventually, that blog started to grow because I started having some collaborators that I wanted to be involved with. And I started contacting organizations such as UEFA, such as FIFA, for this, you know, blog, which later turned into a site, to start, you know, having the opportunity to go to these events. And initially, I thought they're never going to, you know, accredit us because we're small and we just started out. But we were professional and we did hard work and we did really good, you know, yeah, we really hustled and we really wanted to get into football. So we started working with, you know, going to clubs like FC Barcelona, requesting interviews with some players. And it was a very challenging task because back then, you know, even today, it's quite impossible to have access to players. But we were very determined and we went to press conferences. Eventually, we started positioning ourselves and we applied for accreditation to go to FIFA and UEFA events, and they gave it to us. So that was the next jump. So I started having the opportunity to be an accredited journalist, and that's where I think things began to take off because I got to meet a lot of people from the industry. I got to network. I got to see the experience of seeing these events firsthand. And a lot of the times on the courses that I teach, you know, part of the learnings are from what I saw, you know, at press conferences, at mixed zones, you know, at communications departments, the people that I talked to, the people that I interviewed. So a lot of that knowledge I started really bringing in. And then eventually I said, okay, now I have this knowledge. And this goes back to what I was saying before, knowledge, experience, contacts. I started building this on my own. And eventually, you know, the point in time came to say, well, we want to develop an institute. We want to start an institute that is very focused on the student. And this is where my training background came in and where I had done many courses for corporations and, you know, multinational companies, but then for sports. And this is where the relationships that I built, I was able to create, you know, programs that were relying upon the expertise of people from the industry. So a lot of the material that we were putting together was from people that were working in the industry. So it was very practical. And from there, we started launching our courses. And from day one, they started having success because they were, back then, you know, 7.5 years ago, like I said, they were very innovative because they were, you know, looking at what we just talked about before. So nowadays, you know, like I said, we work with a lot of clubs and federations. We have Premier League players on our master's program. And sometimes I have to pinch myself and say, wow, look at us now. We're training professional footballers. We have, you know, one of our students is Troy Deeney in our master's program. He's a captain of Watford. And sometimes I think, wow, this is great that we have, you know, Premier League players that we're giving the opportunity to, you know, to learn more about the industry, and also for our other students to be able to engage and network. So in fact, for our football marketing and management course, we're for the one starting next week, we're talking to a player from Sevilla who may take part in it. Still not 100% confirmed because of his travel and everything. But, so at one point when I first started my career, my dream job was to work at a club, like FC Barcelona or Real Madrid or Manchester United. And today, if someone asked me and they said, would you want to work anywhere else? I would say, no, I love what I do. I see that what we do delivers value. And now for me, it's also a kind of validation to say, hey, I didn't start from a football background. I didn't work at Man United. I didn't work at FC Barcelona. But I've gotten to engage nowadays with a lot of these organizations, and I know about how they work. But I started from a non-football career, and my path was destined to go in a different direction. In fact, I started my professional career working for the Attorney General office in Canada, which is where I studied. So I was destined to go in a public service career. But in a sense, I was brave enough to say, that's not what I want to do. And I took a leap of faith and I took the jump. And I'm not saying it was an easy path, but it was worth it in the end. And now I'm very happy to say that, that we engage with those types of organizations that back then, if you asked me, 10, 15 years ago, I would have never imagined that we would be able to train people from Madrid, from United, from City, from Barcelona, from La Liga. And that has really showed me that anybody who's got the passion and the determination and that puts in the hard work can get it done. And now this is why I love doing what I do, because if I can add my 2 cents of, what I've seen from my own experience, and of course the success patterns that we've seen from people that have gotten ahead. So anyway, not to ramble on, but that was my path.
That's so great. That's so impressive, actually, Diego. Your story, your braveness and the determination to transform and go into your passion, and how that ended you here. And actually, this is something really impressive. And that will lead me to a question, actually, that what do you recommend, or do you advise someone that in the future that he wants, or he's excited to build a business or stuff related to sports, and what's the fields, or what do you recommend him? Do you recommend, like, I just go through my passion and what I love the most, like for marketing or stuff, or what's the opportunities, where the opportunities are? So what's the major things that will determine this?
I would say that there's two things to keep in mind. One of them is clarity, to try and be as clear as you can as to the objective that you want to achieve. I know sometimes, and this is something that I experienced myself in my journey, you're going to have an objective and you're going to see that there's never a straight line, and you guys all know this. But as you begin navigating in your career path, there's going to be other opportunities and other potential collaborations that come along the way. But that takes a couple of things. Number one, it takes determination, and number two, patience. And this is an area that sometimes I've seen people give up just very close to getting to where they want to be, because it is a long road. And I'm not gonna sugarcoat it and say it's very easy to do a course and then you're going to be working at Manchester United or at Liverpool or whatever. It takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of effort, but I've seen it time and time again. Those that put in the work, those that have, the determination and that are clear as to where they want to go, eventually opportunities come. And my path is it's not different than anybody else's. It's just, I was initially thinking I would be working at a club, or but then I found my area. I found where I was adding value to the market, and where I was also passionate about what I was doing. So as you begin navigating on your path, you're going to find that. And if you're dedicated and you put in the hard work every day, it's going to come. But it will take patience. And sometimes this is an area that people can sometimes, they want the results too quick. So that's something to keep in mind, that if you're determined, things can turn out, but it takes a little bit of time.
Yeah, that's so great, and of course it will help me for my plans and actually, I thank you so much, Diego, and
Thank you.
that's very valuable information. And I'm looking forward to see you next week in the course, inshallah.
We're looking forward to having you, inshallah, Badar. So it'll be nice to have these conversations recurring beyond, just tonight. So we're looking forward to having you on the program. I know we were in touch on via LinkedIn, and it'll be a pleasure to have you on board. And this is something I say to everybody that enrolls in the course, and you're going to see as we, those that have enrolled already. The course lasts 2 months, but the relationship that we build doesn't stop after 2 months. And that's the key area there, that we do really strive to not make it a transactionary operation that you do a course, you do 2 months, and then you're gone. We really are keen to know where you're at, and we, as much as we can, we're going to deliver that value to optimize opportunity.
And as you said, the first of the course, networking is one of the key elements.
I think you're going to find that that's going to be a very big part of it, because you're going to see that it's going to be an interactive course. There's people from all over the world. You're going to learn from each other, and you're going to we create WhatsApp groups for people to connect and engage. So it's something that really goes a long way.
That's great. Thank you so much, Diego.
We'll see you on the course next week, Badar, inshallah.
Yeah, inshallah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. All the best. Have a great evening in Riyadh.
Thank you so much.
Great. So that's a really good question by Badar as well, from Saudi Arabia. So let's see if we can have a few more questions, and I know there's a few others in the chat box. So let's go to Rabia. Yes, Rabia, you were in touch with us via Instagram from Pakistan, if I'm not mistaken. So Rabia, let me find you here. Where are you? Can't find. Trying to unmute you, Rabia, but I don't see. I think Rabia has disconnected. Unfortunately, I think she's gone. So we won't be able to engage her. But anyway, we'll move on to the next question. So Rabia, if you're still around, just pop us a message, because I don't see you connected any longer. Let's see. There's a few questions here, but I'm trying to see. Sorry, I'm just trying to see here. Akhil. So let's see if we can get Akhil on. We can get a few more questions in. So Akhil, let me try and find you here. Akhil, there you are. So I'm going to unmute you, Akhil. I hope I'm saying your name right.
Hello.
Hello, welcome. How are you? Can you hear us? Akhil, can you hear us? Okay, I think your connection, Akhil, is not very strong, because I see that your microphone has disappeared. So we'll try and get to your question in a little bit, Akhil. I think there's a question here from Mathieu. Mathieu Thibault. So let's go to Mathieu. Mathieu, who is from France but based in Brazil, and he's doing the course next week. So Mathieu, over to you. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Bonsoir,
Hello.
Mathieu.
Bonsoir, Diego. Hello to everybody. I'm French. I'm here in Brazil for a few months now, relocating actually in Brazil. I've worked in finance for actually almost 15 years. And I have worked for 10 years for a broadcasting company, where I was basically a finance event controller. So I'm more like focused on the financing, let's say, part of the business. And so my question was, and I think it's more for the people who are going to this course next week, about the different specificities from the markets, because you tell us, and it's very true that the industry knowledge is super important. But all the markets in the world have their specificities, I suppose, like in the US, in Asia, in Africa. Well, we have people from all around the world. And I guess my question was, do you address these specificities in the course? And the second one was, is this knowledge that we acquire is basically transferable to any market in the world?
Yeah, no, good question. Good question. One of the things that you're going to see in this course is that the lessons are done in a way very similar to an MBA type of class. And what do I mean by that? Well, that we have a case that we present, and then the discussion takes place amongst, the participants of the course. So in many cases, you're going to learn a lot from your fellow peers as to other areas and other regions, because obviously, we have some cases that we talk about and that guide the conversation. But something as simple as this, and I'll give you an example. A while back ago, I think 1 or 2 months ago, we were doing another course, and we were talking about El Clásico being broadcast on a Saturday as opposed to a weekday, because there was this whole
it was December, yeah.
So it was moved to a different day of the week, etc. I forget exactly what we were discussing specifically, but anyway, just to make the point here, there was a couple of people from the Middle East, and we were talking about the viewership numbers and the reach, etc. And they said, well, just want to point out, so for those that may not know, in the Middle East, the weekend is Friday and Saturday. So Sunday is actually a working day. So when El Clásico has been put on a Sunday before, at least in the Middle East region, it's a completely different opportunity to view it, because it's a weekday. So and that's a very, very simple type of idiosyncrasy. But just goes to show that when you're in an environment where you're discussing the cases and when you're discussing the industry with people from all over the world, you're automatically going to gain insight from other markets, because we incentivize the conversation to, for you to add value. And I'm sure we're going to, learn about what your experience has been in Brazil or in France, and others in the course that may come from other regions will benefit from that. So on the one hand, that's an area that you're going to benefit from the network and from the interaction of a global cohort. And obviously what we do as well is we take into consideration different regions with the material, and we make sure that it's, it's not just looking at, the major international clubs, but how can we adapt it to smaller clubs and other markets, because they're very different, right? I mean, you talked about the US before. The US, even though Major League Soccer is a growing league and it's emerging, the reality is that they don't have the same reach as La Liga or the Premier League. So sometimes the roles that become available in the US are more related to sales or to ticketing, because that's an area that they focus on more from a revenue standpoint, because from a TV broadcasting standpoint, although they have numerous deals in place, it's still not the same type of worldwide reach as other leagues. So each market has its own idiosyncrasies, but we definitely look to address them individually.
Okay, and it goes with this subject. And would you think that, in your experience, like market like the US, for example, or South America or Asia, would actually favor international profiles, like people with experience in Europe, or where maybe the sports, the football industry is bigger? Would it be an advantage?
Yes, in many cases. In other cases, the other thing that just is an evident hurdle is the work permit, right? So, if people that have a valid work permit, for example, yourself, French national, across Europe, that's not an issue for you, and that's something that could be an added value. However, if you're European but want to work in the United States or North America and don't have that permit, you're going to need to build your profile. I'm not saying that it's impossible because, we've seen it many times that things, when opportunities come along, but it is more of a challenge because you're competing against those that already do have that paperwork in place. So it is an asset in many cases, and especially the higher up you go and the more expertise you gain, the more that the recruitment possibilities are going to happen that the company can sponsor you. But if it's more of an entry level position, it may be a bit more challenging. So I would say that the markets that you're in, I always recommend this. People sometimes come to the program and they say, well, my objective is to work in a Premier League club. And I say, okay, well, where are you based? And if they're based in India or Brazil or wherever, that it's not in the UK or in Europe, at least for now, still, I say my recommendation is start building your experience in your market first. Because if you want to jump from India or Brazil or Nigeria or wherever and go directly to a Premier League club, it's a very, very difficult leap because you don't necessarily have the paperwork to work in the country, or maybe not even the necessary experience. But what I do say is, if you start building that experience within the market that you're in, then opportunities may come. And we've seen, other scenarios where students that do a program eventually have an opportunity. There's somebody that we know, he's from India, and he did a program, not with us, but he collaborated with us later on as a speaker in one of our webinars. But anyway, he did a program, and then eventually he was hired by Eibar, a club in La Liga, because Eibar was looking to expand in Asia and particularly in India. And now he's working for Eibar. But initially he started, doing projects and collaborations and work in India, and that caught their eye, and eventually he got hired. So it isn't impossible, but it's many times easier to start within the market that you're in. Because in Brazil, Mathieu, what are you doing now? Are you there long-term, short-term?
Well, I just relocated here for personal reasons, and I'm gonna be here for long term. So basically, my situation is a bit of I was working in Europe, but I moved to Brazil.
Okay.
So my goal is to enter this Brazilian market, but as an European, it's gonna be challenging. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's also about setting yourself objectives and timelines. The other thing that I recommend as well for people listening in tonight is, some people want a timeline that is shorter, and some people can afford to do it in a bit longer term. So I always recommend that if you have a bit more time to say, and instead of saying, well, I want my objective to be achieved in 6 months, I always say, why don't you put 18 months or 24 months? But in the meantime, start building towards that, because sometimes it does take that time to build those relationships and start getting to know the market, and especially in many cases as well in your situation. I don't know if you speak Portuguese, but the language as well. So there's other elements that you need to start building upon. So if you give yourself some time and you're able to work in other areas or continue to operate in the sector that you're currently in, then that provides you at least a wider buffer to get you where you want to go.
Sure.
But interesting market.
Yeah, interesting market.
Perfect.
Thank you very much. Looking forward to start this course next week.
Likewise, to having you on board, Mathieu. We know a couple people in Brazil, so when we start the program, there's potentially a couple of people that we could put you in touch. Are you in Sao Paulo or Rio, or where are you at?
Sao Paulo.
Sao Paulo. Okay. Let me have a think, because there's a couple of people that we know in Brazil, so we'll have a chat later on once you start the course. Perfect. Okay, Mathieu. All the best. Thanks for your question. So maybe we'll take one or two more, because we are, now running a little bit over the time that we had initially anticipated. But it's great. I mean, I love tackling these questions, because it's important to understand what you guys are thinking, and what are your current challenges, and where do you see yourselves, and where you want to go. So I think we have Abdul Samad Yusuf from Nigeria. Let's see if we can get you on. So Abdul Samad, let's try that. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Hello.
Hello, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. I have two questions, and I'll take them one after the other.
Okay.
How do you think I can gather the industry specific knowledge required for functioning in the football industry, especially in Nigeria, where we have limited chances as graduates of sports? We have limited chances to get internship positions in sports organizations and federations. That's one. Then the other question is, football clubs in Nigeria are government controlled. It's not run like a business per se. Government fund the stadiums, the clubs, the salaries they pay them, and I think what do you think are the ways I can pitch ideas to these clubs to improve their business acumen in sports?
Yeah.
Those are the two questions.
Very good questions. So the first question about industry-specific knowledge, there's a couple of ways that can be done. On the one hand, like I was saying before, there's a lot of information out there. So if you are willing to dedicate the time and put the effort, I'm sure that you can find a lot of information related to specific areas of the business of football that you can gather on your own. Obviously, it takes a little bit longer. It takes a bit of time because filtering through what's of value and what isn't and what's important can take some time. That's why, in a way, the courses that we've designed have been done so to optimize the opportunities for people like yourself and others that want to gain this knowledge right away, streamlined and packaged all together, areas that we know are essential for the business of sport. But we understand that not everybody can do our programs or can afford them, or so if that is the case, one of the things that we definitely recommend is that you take the time to do it on your own, to research. We also have a lot of free resources. We do many free webinars throughout the year. Maybe if you have followed us for some time, you'll see that we like to give back to our community, and we bring in speakers for free that provide value from time to time in webinars such as these. And many times it's not just me, but other experts that know much more than me about other areas. So that's a way that you can continue to be engaged with us through our webinars, through our newsletter. The blog that we run as well has a lot of value with articles that our team puts together. So probably that's a good way to start if you're thinking about where are some areas of resources that you can begin looking for. Obviously, there's magazines like FC Business Magazine, Sports Business, KPMG Football Benchmark, Deloitte Money League. All of these are free resources available that can provide you additional insight. So that's on the one hand. And then to address the second question, Africa, I think it's an interesting market. The challenge there is that if you're coming in from the outside, what you don't want to be perceived is, and this is for many markets, you don't want to be perceived as a threat, because in many countries where football is lacking professionalization, those that are inside may see that if someone from the outside comes with a sports management background and with new ideas, they may see that as a threat. So I think the important thing to consider in markets such as, say, in Africa or in your case, Nigeria, would be to look to ways that you can approach these organizations, add value, add your expertise based on what you've been building on with your sports management degree and your other areas that you can start researching on.
Okay.
But do so in a way that that doesn't feel as though they're being threatened, because I don't know if that's your perception too, but in many countries that can be something.
That's true. That's true. It's true.
So if they see you as someone who's there to, non-threatening but providing value and that can be of use to the organization, and all it takes is just getting your foot in the door. So once you get in, it's easier then to move up and to build relationships. So that would be the two sort of ways that I would think that you can get industry-specific knowledge and, specifically to the African market, try and get ahead.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and hope to see you in some of our future webinars and to remain engaged. So
Sure.
I'll leave that. I'll put this picture up here just to say that the SBI family is going beyond just the courses themselves. We continue to be in touch with our students. We continue to engage with them. This is just a picture of a few of our master students from a couple of years ago. They came to Barcelona, and we took them to different organizations here. We took them to FC Barcelona, to Espanyol, to Media Pro, and we are very proud to have a wide family all across the globe, and we really do take a strong initiative to be very conscious that it's not about us, it's about you guys, and it's about the value that we can deliver, because the success of our organization depends on the success of the people doing our programs, and that's why we really work very hard to give as many opportunities and provide the knowledge, provide the mentoring, optimize the networking in as many ways that we can to do so. So what I was going to say is that our contact details are here. You see my details, my email directly there. You can also find me on LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out if you've been part of this webinar and want to, have a deeper conversation, or if you're thinking about doing the course, anybody from our team. But obviously myself, I'd be very happy now that you guys have been here tonight to engage and take part in a conversation that goes beyond what we've talked about tonight. Right. So let me just go and see if we can finish off with one final question. I'm going to try and see who we can get because I think we've covered most of them. I think we covered Badar, we covered Abdul Yusuf, Richard as well, Santiago. I think we covered most people except for okay, we have Caro here. Caro, hey Caro. So Caro is connecting from Canada, and in fact Caro knows someone that I went to high school with in Canada. So Caro, let's see if we can connect with you and we can bring you on. So Caro, can you hear us?
Hola, yes. Hi,
Hola,
how are you?
Great to have you on this webinar tonight. So it's a real pleasure. I know that Anna has been in touch with us and she speaks very highly of you. So it's a real pleasure to finally engage with you.
Oh, thank you so much. First, I want to say that it was like great. Like all the questions that you're answering on this, an amazing speaker you are. So thank you so much for that. So I have two questions, but I'm gonna make it really fast because I know that you are like almost over. As you know, Ottawa is not a place for soccer. We had like a small league of soccer and they just closed it. So now they're gonna change it to basketball. So my question is, like, in a city that soccer is not like the prime sport, especially in Canada, what are the chances that somebody like me that study public relations can build that experience in sport in another sport and after apply it into soccer in another city?
Yeah, good point. Good point. What I would do in your situation is I would do a list of all the sports organizations in Ottawa, Canada, for those that may not be familiar with Ottawa, Canada. I would do a list of all the sports organizations, and not just the hockey team and the other sports franchises, but try and see if there's any sports. I don't know, maybe there's a sports organizations as far as sports marketing firms or sports broadcasters, anything related to sports. And it doesn't necessarily have to be top tier. So even like the Ottawa 67s, or do a list of all those organizations, and then have a catered approach. Have a a customized approach that you can send your CV or you can send your candidature. I would do so in a way like we were talking about before with Eli, in an unsolicited way. In other words, not waiting for an opportunity to come up, but sending it yourself. And in those approaches or CVs that you send, try and do proposal as to how you can deliver value in some area. So for example, I don't know, this is something that comes off the top of my head, but you can do a social media audit of how they're using social media. And then you can go to them and say, well, you know what? There's a big Latin community here in Ottawa, and I noticed that you guys aren't really tapping into that. You know, with my profile, I can, I've put together this report that looks at how you could potentially open up, I don't know, a Spanish Twitter or I don't know, something like that. I'm just thinking off the top of my head here. But if you start approaching these organizations with this type of out-of-the-box thinking, I think eventually one of them will eventually catch their eye, and they'll say, hey, you know what? Maybe this is a good idea. And even if it's not the exact idea that fits in with their priorities or with their business objectives, it may be something that kind of is in line with what they want to do, or even just shows that you're what we talked about before, your proactiveness. So that's on the one hand, looking at other sports. And also, don't forget, and I'm sure you know this, that Canada Soccer is based in Ottawa. So the Federation for Canada. So there's opportunities there for potential internships or jobs, or just an opportunity for you to show up and say, hey, I'm willing to collaborate for free, and whatever you need, I'm here. But I would say that before doing that and just going in without a strategy, I would think of a strategy beforehand. So rather than going in and saying I'm willing to do whatever, I would say I'm willing to do this, this, and this. Social media, because I think you can cater to the Latin community. PR, because I think that there's some events that we could do here in Ottawa. I mean, I don't know. Think about it yourself. But if you do that, I think that you're going to have much bigger chances of getting your foot in the door.
Yeah, it's a really good point about like social media is everything right now these days, and doing like a social monitoring on a specific organization. I guess that's gonna be it's gonna be different than just send a CV, as you say before.
Right.
And also I read like the 7 steps that you put to do a CV in sports.
Right.
That also is on the Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, I think like, well, like my dream is go move to Barcelona eventually and like work there. So slowly, I just want to build step by step how I'm able to get the experience, right? In order to be elected eventually.
Yeah. Just want to show you the camera here. I don't know if you can see it, but our office is located right across Camp Nou. I don't know if you see it there, but right across FC Barcelona. So.
Oh my God!
Hopefully
Thank you so much for that view. You just made my day. Oh my God, that was awesome.
Hopefully at some point, this goes for everybody out, listening tonight. If you're ever in Barcelona, stop by and visit us. It'll be a real pleasure. And Carol, there's another thing. The team in Ottawa. I read recently that Atletico Madrid may be involved in some manner. I haven't kept up very much with the story, but maybe there's something there as well to look into.
Oh, I gonna look at it and maybe like give it a call to the Cholo Simeone to see what he thinks about that, right?
Yeah, exactly. We know someone as well that works in former student of ours that works for FC Edmonton. So I'm gonna see if I can connect you to him. He's a really great guy, Mexican guy. So I'll try and see if we can connect you, just so maybe he's got some ideas as well as to how he's gotten ahead in the Canadian market and now the Canadian Premier League as well. So there's opportunities there.
Thank you so much for your time and great. Nice talking to you.
Likewise, Caro. Hope we can keep in touch. So thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Great. Well, with that, guys, we can wrap the session up for tonight. There's our contact details. Get in touch with us if you want to know more about the course that we're running next week. Drop us an email. We'd be happy to have a one-on-one conversation or send you more information via email, whatever suits you best. And even if you just want to have a conversation about, you know, where you want to go and what you want to do, just connect with us on LinkedIn. And from day one, we've always believed that we want to give as much value to our students and to the people that, you know, for part of our global community. So thank you to everybody connecting tonight. Abdul Zamad, Adam, Ayman, Badar, Bo, Caro, Chris, Christian, Santiago, Otu, Mathieu, Akhil, Siyad, Marco, Juliana, Vincent, Suhartu, John Paul, and Jacomo, and Ellie. So for everybody connecting tonight, it's been an absolute pleasure. Hope that we can engage again in another webinar or in one of our programs, and we'll be in touch. So take care, enjoy your Friday evening, enjoy your weekend, and yeah, hope to engage with you soon. All the best. Bye for now.